Welcome to our lovely future humans, our 5D collective. To those who are curious on our topic, you don't need another transformation. You need self-leadership. And so if you're new, you don't know that the 5D Mystic Mentor Content Creator podcast host here has a lot of different pieces of information that I like to try and bring to you. But right now, I'm also trying to organize the content so that we can enjoy, for those of you who do journal prompts and mindset practices, that which is the active no validation loops. Okay, so when self-leadership is missing, what I've noticed in relationships, in your life, in organizations, is that transformation fails. It fails because when a person has no nervous system sovereignty, they're not able to stay in the ventral vagal state. They're not able to stay in basically the height of our human makeup. The ones who don't believe it's possible, we're going to get to that one too. So the capacity to hold your window of tolerance, once you move into window welcome, that's why journaling is used effectively, because you're not using it to validate your charge. If you reflect, you don't validate the charge and the story. You are discerning, and you also know you have effective realism. You also have biases. You have that which is called epistemic discipline, but furthermore, you have curiosity. So you continuously learn. And when you're transforming, when you're maintaining the self-leadership, the transformation is that it's never boring, because how do you get bored? Out of being not only in a blissful state, but furthermore, when you're not in that blissful state, you're still mastering something that is precious to you, yourself. This is the one thing that people who instead are followers, so they are fear-based, the unhealthy kind, they don't know how to journal in a way of growth because they're seeking to use it as a dumpster, as something that they can simply put things down, and they're not effectively understanding. If you don't move into curiosity with your inner talk, and then you maintain the embrace that activates, so anchoring in ventral energy is what our journaling practices do. And that's why self-leadership is what you need more of. Well, you want. You don't need more of it. So people don't struggle with life's purpose, life's meaning, with their own meaning. They're struggling with the state that they're living. And if they choose to disregard that which is good therapy, we won't be talking anything to them, because I'm going to read to you a lovely quote. James Russell Lowell. One thorn of experience is worth a whole wilderness of warning. Because even if you warn, meaning you share information and you talk about it, it doesn't mean that they will believe you. Okay, so the one thorn doesn't have to be a thorn, doesn't have to be hitting rock bottom like Pinocchio did. But if that's what it takes, if they're serious about their healing, then they will stay within therapy until they achieve wholeness, and they will get rid of this thing called the mask that they wear, their performance. Okay, and so as I wanted to read a little bit, transformation fails where self-leadership is missing. Choose differently. Self-leadership begins the moment you stop outsourcing your stability. Leaders regulate and grow. Followers validate and stagnate. And they stagnate and weaken because their bad resilience, and here's where it's not their choice to dysregulate, let me let you know that. There's no monster to be blaming for the spiritual bypasser community. They're also somatic bypassers, and they actively are not window of welcoming. Okay, so when they experience that which is a charge, they just have good team, bad team, then they bring in stories, imagination, we all have it, but also besides the imagination, knowledge bank, if you will. And there's many different ways that we can all make sense to ourselves, because that's what our left can do. But when you are a growing human being, you use your left and your right, and you don't bullshit yourself. And you don't seek to be right or wrong. You understand that you can know a bazillion of pieces of information, like I do, of everything that I continue to learn on, though, because I will always be someone who will learn more about the subject matter of personal growth and spiritual growth. And from the spiritual community perspective, I have continuously channels, downloads, meetings, and more. So that's for our future episodes, not right now. Okay, so when you have a steady self-image, you journal, you self-reflect, and you use an inner growth mindset, and you implement micro habits that grow your leadership skills. And so your transformation is it's consistent. The people who will go to therapy, they will feel transformed, their first step, because the unmasking and finally being able to have a steady self-image. So they will be mesmerized with that. They continue. I don't know it because I don't come from that. I have securely attached. I have always had the steady self-image, and I never said no to that which is my embodiment and my blissfulness. And so when you self-regulate, you don't dysregulate, because you can differentiate when you're in a room with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It doesn't matter. And you continuously expand the capacity because you're able to continuously do it. And so that's why we do know followers, on the other hand, they grow bad resilience and weaken via the same practices. They also validate each other. So when you hear someone say energy vampire, dark auras, when they define themselves as one group and another group, and they give themselves a storyline, there's your 3D, 4D collective, the emotional immaturity in leadership positions. And so they can use fancy words, but they will be obvious to those of us who notice you're not actually growing. Right now, the charge is obvious. You're casting stones. You're almost like the Scarlet Letter. And it seems that you're using our ancient stories to validate that which is your likes and dislikes, and to call a group of people a name. And not just that. You're validating the charge versus growing an integrated brain and learning how to basically uncharge a charge, gain clarity. And that's one of the things that those who journal and mindset practices, they like to gain clarity. So when we're looking at our personality patterns, we're not looking at them to yell at ourselves or to maintain them. So you practice habits that are new, and you look forward to training your pause, because you're excited as you move more into the, I don't know what your name is, but I know that for me, every time I embody more of me, and then when I notice that there's more to come, it's in an exciting way. But I've been doing the Dharma wheel, not karma wheel, although karma stuff can come up. And I'm using words for the mystic spiritual community as well. So I'm doing prefrontal cortex is what I'm trying to say, in this way of noticing that which I get to say, wow, I just resolved this thing. Because you know how Peter Levine, and maybe you don't, Peter Levine spells out one trauma charge or whatever moves, the rest continue to unfold. And so the progress is, God never gives you more than what you can handle. So your body is smart, is intelligent. Now, the part about having a good gut or bad gut, I'm going to pause, because it's only once you are self-regulating and you take awareness and regulation seriously and you disengage from those bad habits. Now, bad habits, we all can have them. And like Dr. Daniel Fox presents for NPD and BPD, and I think he also supports other groups of people, but he's amazing. He's talked about how he says maladaptive patterns, you can find adaptive strategies to those patterns, and that those who can fall back on those patterns when they're with healthy self-worth people, that's a good thing, because those people will not make them feel ashamed of that which is something that they're falling back on, because that's their comfort zone. It will be something that will be, okay, how do we want to work with that? So you don't justify the bad habits. You also don't vilify them. That's where the difference between emotionally mature people is, that they're not their own parents. They're not whipping themselves into shape. They're also not having expectations of people who don't want to achieve the A game. Okay, so transformation happens because, one, you're whole. As you consistently transform, you're really self and leading and empowering, and the nervous system gains complete capacity to this welcome. It's just amazing. I have no words to describe. Every time I move into an expanded version of myself, just recently had some of this happen, and the flow state comes up. It's like, wow. So when you hear someone say enlightenment is boring, that's a person who's not connected to the emotional body. They're a flat line. It's not even funny what flat lines look like or perceive like. So they weaken themselves by telling themselves stories, because the minute that you find groupies, you're not really going to be uncomfortable with the uncomfortable emotions. And you're also not going to be uncomfortable with, let me expand my mind. Now, I want to let you know, I'm a person who loves learning. So besides being disciplined with the epistemic stuff, that word that I'm just using because I like it, that's how I do it. That's why I feel like, you can't do it that way. I'm doing it that way. But epistemically curious people and disciplined people have fun with all knowledge. The epistemically lazy ones are the ones who will not notice that they're not learning anymore, and that when they think that the arrogant ones they learn from know everything, complex systems don't have perfect formulas, and there's a lot of complex stuff out there. And the intelligent ones know about it, which is why with their consilience approach, they get a lot of things done because they're not actually in the fear-based, unhealthy, ineffective group of people who, let me leave that one alone because I'm actually, now I'm having fun. They all offer golden nuggets, by the way. So we all count, we all do something. So if you're looking to add to your intentional steady living journaling system and practices, you can find journal prompts and mindset practices on the PayHip store. And if you want more self-leadership reflections and deeper conversations like these, but in written form, Substack, you can subscribe. So as we continue and conclude, when uncertainty comes about, you're choosing self-regulation because you have the capacity. When unknowns, unexpecteds, unwanteds come about, you say, like the sentence that I've given you before, I regulate. No, I almost reacted, and then I remembered sovereignty and integrity are a choice, but you do regulate. You're not always going to get it right, but you're not looking to get it right or wrong. Okay, so this is fun. Self-regulation is fun. Eustress is fun. People are fun. You're not afraid of people. When you look out into the world, if you are enlightened with knowledge, you will also know that you will never expect an apology from those who physically are incapable due to their lack of emotional maturity. So they are not able to use two sides of the brain. Non-bilaterally integrated brain people are fear-based, which is why they will be obvious. They will be unsuccessful in every single bit of what they offer to us. You know how they say with the parents, right? So you've heard about Patrick Tiahan. He's a childhood trauma survivor, healing therapist that I talk about sometimes. And so he points out that, nobody has to be ready to forgive the parents, even though they did the best they can. So he's there for the community of people who need that. That is validating a very specific charge, but that's where, as a person who doesn't know what it's like to be a childhood trauma survivor, I'm objectively aware enough of Maria to say I can't ever know what it's like to be in their shoes. And so while I can see from the external, by objectively analyzing it, that is a validating charge, I'm not going to say Maria's right. I'm not going to say I'm wrong. I'm not going to have to, because that's exactly what the difference is between a self-leader, who is a person who's being themselves, who has epistemic curiosity, discipline, and the capacity to know, I would never in a million years be so arrogant to say that I'm right and you're wrong over your feelings. Because that's actively why, Terry, you're awesome, man. It's a losing strategy, adaptive child part people, because we all will have wanted that one hug to be welcomed and understood. So we all know what it's like to want to be validated in our emotions, because that's what we rule with. The ones who deny it are the very ones who didn't get it. And the minute you will understand that is why you won't play that game. Because it's not a game. It's actively disconnected people who are flat line to me, because their energy at a certain point doesn't move up. It stagnates, because they're also the same human beings who will continue to validate each other, to use journaling and reflection in the same way. They scribble on a board and tell you that wellness isn't real, enlightenment isn't real, and in the meantime I have explanation for every single one of them. But guess what they don't want? The explanation, because they're not willing to hear it. And so when someone chooses, what do you notice in yourself? Validation or regulation? To ignore when they're validating their charge and their story. Do you feel triggered when people don't agree? And to notice that they will have wanted to be welcomed in that subjective opinion. Okay, so everyone can be the hypocrite of the other, which is why, as Terrio points out, adults know how to take it when someone says you're a piece of shit and I hate you and you're blah, 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 and whatever words can come out of their mouth and accuse you. And even that word evil, which is why words don't mean much to a person like myself, because there's a bunch of people who use them with affective realism in states that are completely obvious. They're playing out whatever shit happened to them. And as a person who has knowledge, why would I ever be reactive to something that, 1, is impersonal, 2, is a sad story, 3, is delusional, 4, is being supported by a bunch of more delusional people. And I'm like, wow, my brain really knows how to hone in on all of that, which is Okay, 3D, 4D, you got enough attention for today. Let me leave it alone. So you'll know you're in a follower state when disagreement feels threatening. You'll know you're in a leader state when you don't give a shit about who agrees or disagrees with you, and you notice, yeah, I got feelings too. And I noticed that the globe is still round, like when I was a kid and learned about recycling. And I want air, water, and food to be saved because the kids of the future, there's a bunch of parents making them. Oh, they love making these children. And my 3-year-old is here right now. None of the grown-ups are safe. Nope. Pretty much a bazillion of them are not. So I'm pretty sure they don't deserve any of us because we all wanted to live and we still want to live. And in the meantime, we get to have chaos because some people like their low dopamine hits and they continue in their survivorship bias to bring us ancient news without noticing their idiocy because they also support the very same unembodied leaders who are epistemically lazy, who think they know everything, and they're so dumb to the point where they actually are arrogant enough to think that they're right. Wow. So irritated by them. Yes, so I'm irritated by ignorance. I don't actually suffer it, and God knows all about it. In fact, he didn't chime in because I didn't get too upset. But that's how I feel about ignorance. And then I remind myself not to make a big deal. My 3-year-old just made a big deal. So here's where, when you can not validate you're upset, it's because, yeah, of course we all see the disgusting shit that happens. And that's the part. You want to forgive, learn how to process. Otherwise, the whole Cain and Abel stuff, the whole ego stuff continues. And so when someone's smart, they're going to understand stability, maturity, rationality, being able to be adaptive, teachable. You use a flexible brain, great. Neuroplasticity, the bright sides, not the dark sides. You don't use journaling to validate your venting. You don't use anything to validate. You be like, okay, wait a minute. Now I sound like a parrot. I started to sound like a parrot to myself, not to you probably. But here's Bezo van der Kolk. The only way we can change the way we feel is by becoming aware of our inner experience and learning to befriend what is going on inside ourselves. And here's where lovely Sadhguru, this is the paradox of life. You can create a limitless number of lies, but there's only one truth. And this one actually comes from Gary V. Compassion, kindness, empathy. Your soft skills are what really matter as a leader. In fact, that's so true. The soft skills are the hard skills in business. I'm not going to say they're hard. I'm going to say that people who are actual intelligent and smart will all want to have soft skills. The ones who don't, we know who they are. And fear-based leadership has always been not leadership to those of us who are love-based, because it's, something's really off. Your manners, your brain's not connecting. You really I was a teenager, when I found out about this. Now I'm a grown woman who also knows how it works. And so with that, it is definitely something fascinating. No, not the ones who are validating each other. But I want to read to you Ron Siegel because he's actually sharing something important about this. When we're talking about acceptance is very important to talk about the difference between accepting experience as it is arising in our own body and endorsing a certain kind of behavior. And so those of us who like to grow, we don't endorse bad behavior. We also don't endorse our charges. Okay, so somebody who wants to endorse their charge, and it seems like people are trying to make us get over our emotions. No, you have a choice. You can grow up or you don't have to. But when you don't grow up, you model that which is called emotional charges and divisiveness. And you also don't teach children how to continue learning more and how school is important and how to regulate themselves and so much more. And so the part about what I notice is that a lot of people like to talk about the topics that we talk about here. Here's Patrick Tiahan for you. Our false self-identity is also an attempt to not emulate an abusive parent. Then we have Ruth Lanius, MD. Traumatic memory is not a memory that's remembered, but a memory that's relived. And then we have Gabor Mate. He says, not why the addiction, why the pain. Why am I not getting better? Why you're still in survival mode after years of therapy and healing work, Dr. Amy Apigan. So people who care about themselves, they will choose not convenience over everything. They will be aware that we all choose what we are used to. And so I'm lucky because I'm a steady self-image of Maria since I was a kid. I didn't lose myself and I didn't choose to put on a mask. And I chose to consistently learn, and I still do. And when somebody wants to tell me that they can give you an answer to everything and a magical baton. No, complex systems don't have magical batons. But if that is what you're seeking, then obviously you want a shortcut. There are no shortcuts to life. God gave us 2 hands, 2 feet. He encourages, comforts, supports, and strengthens his children. There's no need for a monster to motivate any of them because the monster doesn't exist. It's also contradiction to his perfection, which is why if you're not ever a person who got broken and you got taught about God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, you say, wow, all our brothers and sisters are saved, when you find out that science can save them all. Then you find out, oh, wait, they don't all want to be saved because they don't all want to meet themselves, because that's what happens when they got the short end of the stick and they don't know what love is, and they're stuck in their self-righteous energy, which is the only thing they had that kept them safe as children in an unsafe environment. Okay, so while Patrick Tiahan has a collective that he is there to support, I'm here for the ones who want to model that which is the future human, that which is self-leadership, that which is transformative, and that which is also epistemically curious, disciplined, and aware that we don't need to make it into a good or bad team, because that's not what motivates us. You find your purpose in life by finding your own nervous system sovereignty and your integrated brain. And with a restorative embodiment, you do good resilience. And then you don't validate your emotional charges and your petty, small-minded anger and upset. And so when I come with a charge, who am I doing a disservice to? Myself and you. Because I'm speaking dumb, Maria, and because I'm not growing. And I know better. And so I don't need to get angry. I can be irritated and let you all know that's the edge which you grow from. Because really, it's not an image that I uphold personally, although that's the story for the Enneagram that tells me a perfectionist has an image to uphold. So you see, this is the part when you know yourself best, and then you get the PDP framework, which actually is spot on. Dr. Dan, love it. I need a quote. There's a quote that I'm actually looking for. And so when people are terrible at predicting the future, that's because they're actually a lot of those who think they know everything. That's their blind spot. And they also don't connect to the Planck and Akash and the zero part, and don't know what choice points are and all of the free will stuff that we talk about. But some don't believe in it. So again, I digress. Personality. It is a filter through which our temperament deals with us as one nervous system body being here on Earth. Dr. Daniel Siegel. And as he says, in awareness, you become aware of who you really are, and it's not personality patterns, but you do work with it. And he supports mindfulness workshops with his PDP framework. And so they found that the areas that people were having a bit of challenge growing from, the PDP framework helped. And that's because it's based on our 3 subcortical areas and the emotions sad, anger, and fear. And so for those who do know how they walk a walk and talk a talk, again, you will know how to regulate, and you will know how to reassure yourself, and you will know how not to look for validation from those around you. But you also pose yourself questions so that you can continue to grow. Because the part of transformation is that you're not changing when you're an integrated brain and you're a whole self. Now you're becoming more of yourself. And so when I am in a charge, the charge is great, there's a feeling, but there's more that can come from it. Furthermore, the charge actually dumbs my brain down, because as you get into this, the hippocampus gets saturated with cortisol. So there's an active mechanism because I start to defend myself. Then like the defense posture of your embodied brain, you're going to start honing in a specific, there's a whole explanation. So when you're not wanting to stay small-minded, you're going to notice it, and that's why you'll sound like I do to myself, like a parrot, because it's like, yeah, okay, I'm supporting a really not productive habit right now. Okay, so people who allow themselves to, I have wiggle rooms, like my physical activity. I'm still not doing great with it, okay? But I know how to motivate myself because I know that I can bring my A game on. And I know why I do what I do. Okay, so when people want reassurance and others to support them, they must have a different motivation, okay? If they find out what it is, they can learn how to harness their personal PDP framework if they want that one or not, but they can learn how to motivate themselves in a healthy way. And then they can learn how to use the edge. So I use the edge to say, okay, here's another area where you can grow. It's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. The ones who get tired of doing it, they really are just looking for someone to say, you're right, they're wrong. And that's not growth. That's validating and creating a group like the Flat Earthers. And that's where, to me, I do not validate people. I do not disregard their subjective opinion. I am honored if they share with me their opinion, if they can welcome mine. And if they can't, I say, I'm sorry. Some people say, why would you? I will say, I'm sorry because I don't like to hurt people's feelings. That's the nurture in me. But also because I totally get it that they're upset. It's not to reinforce or negate that which is the behavior, but at the same time, this is the part. Everybody has a different way that they will interact with that which is a misalignment. Okay, so misaligning, it's when we're on a different course, and some people, they don't know how to handle differences like mature adults and welcome different political truths, different religious truths, different spiritual truth, different all of it, because there's a point that the word truth doesn't, to me, doesn't even apply here. It's, are we grounded in reality? Then all of our cherishable beliefs can be falsifiable. And so let's, as grown-ups do, emotionally mature people in leadership positions always succeed at making everyone a leader, not just one. Followers, none of them are leaders. They actively will fail miserably. They were already set up to fail, and the fact is they're set up to fail because they're disconnected from their humanity. They're disconnected from their own species. And in the meantime, while my brain, like anybody else, will hone in on that which is dangerous, and therefore every single bit of all the epistemic lazy ones, all the emotionally immature, dysregulated ones, every single one of the 3D, 4D low frequency, the part that is making you intelligent is that you'll be aware, what does your brain do? It's not an idiot. You don't talk shit to yourself. What does your embodied brain do? It protects you. So of course my brain is going to spot. That's why Buddha makes fun of me. Hey, Buddha, high five. And Jesus stares me down. Hey, Jesus, high five. Because Jesus says, remember, forgive, you promised so. Open that heart of yours. Don't be the judgmental asshole. Buddha makes fun of me. He's like, you're wasting way too much time on the low frequency that aren't moving anywhere. Well, you make fun of me, Maria, because he sat under a tree and I make a little fun of him. But my point is, a sage will laugh at someone who's wasting their time because they will try to be motivating them to notice the idiocy that they're doing. So you don't have a 3-year-old that is stubborn to the point of, I won't do diet, or you say, oh, okay, we won't do it. No, it'll be, we're doing the diet. And you get curious about yourself. So you have fun. The ones who are not having fun with themselves, it breaks my heart because they don't have a way to talk to themselves. Terry Real points out, we hold ourselves accountable the way we were held. But see, when you're self-aware, accountable, and regulating, you learn to be your grown-up version. You're not an indulgent parent. You're not a abstract of yourself. And those who don't want self-agency, they don't have to have it. They can continue talking about themselves being ruled by others. They're okay with that. They can continue to talk about us not having any kind of free will. Sure. My point is, when you're intelligent, you wouldn't buffoon yourself, and so you wouldn't want validation in that way. We all have affective realism bias. We all have feelings first. So you will learn, if you are whole, you know exactly how to become the grown-up version of you, and you will not say no to it. Because why would you not want blissfulness? So when someone's a stagnating, dead, energetic, yeah, I'm going to end with a story. So let me just leave you with this. There's a man, I love what he had to share on subreddit. He talked about men. I added, and I said, I think it's not just men. It's also women and people. And I've seen commercials for an app, Liven, an app that wants to help people with that which is not laziness, not procrastination, right? So I'm sure you will have heard of it. So it's talking about people who are disconnected. And so they're disconnected, that embodied brain. But here's where, again, no shortcuts. So transformation, as someone pointed out, happens within therapy for those who need that. Once you have earned secure attachment, then you want to move into however long it takes till you can forgive. The feeling of forgiveness is important. I'm forgiving still myself and the teenagers and the resentment stuff that comes up every now and then because I don't want to be around morons. And I don't actually look up to cowards and backstabbers as monsters either. So it's more of, okay, I can uncharge it and I don't have a timeline. I'll uncharge it while I talk to y'all. And into the future we go. That's how it works. So it's not an active charge of resentment in a way of let me validate it. It's the best word I could find because it's just irritation and at the same time sadness and at the same time knowledge. And it's all like there at the same time. It's like, well, I know what people who give off a low frequency do. They dysregulate. And so we perceive our entire species, as Tara Brach points out. in one of the summits that I got to learn from. Those who say we don't know what species we are. So that they're disconnected from understanding the science, or they don't know it. So as he points out, he feels that the people who are going through this disconnected, they're disconnected from the body, the purpose. They're really struggling with things, or they're disconnected to the real struggle. They're disconnected to the real wins. I didn't read the whole thing to you all. So, but long story short, he tells of what helped him. So what helped him was to cut out all passive dopamine, scrolling, junk content, which I'm glad to see a lot of young ones notice this, and that's because they have more information on it. He began doing physical activity, running, lifting, and then doing things that are even hard. And so allowing himself to put himself out there. So people who know whatever they're looking to grow will do so. People who want to allow themselves to continue supporting their bad habits, they will do so as well. And like Russell Lowell, or this James Russell Lowell, one thorn of experience is worth a whole wilderness of warning. If they figure it out somehow with their own perception, they will, and you can't make them. You can't make a person love themselves first. And like Patrick Tian points out, it's a confusing letdown for a child from childhood trauma stuff because they don't know how. But if they do find out all this good information and they want their best interest, then they're going to go and do it the right way. If they want to be groupies and hang out with the ones who say they don't need it and then continue validating each other, they will do it that way. And that's the whole point. So transformation happens for those who take off their mask in a very amazing way. I know of the ones who are doing it and they're healing. Then there's more transformation that comes once you're maintaining the steady self-image, which is what I can talk to you about, because I didn't ever wear this mask. And when you are doing it, the flow state and blissfulness consistently grows. And when you have charges and other stuff come up, you know how to work with it because you want to. Your playground, personality patterns, temperament, and you don't have bad things to say about yourself. You don't have good things to say. You're not a child. You're a mature human being who has fun with that, which is who you are and life's purpose. You know that there's only one life, 24 hours. You want to spend it with loved ones. You want to hope they wake up. Being grounded in reality. I saw another Reddit post so that the girl was basically still getting over a breakup. When does reality strike? When you start to know that, one, there's an anthropologist who tells us about the healing process of a breakup and why the brain works the way it does. So it works like a addiction to, what was it? Like cards, gambling. So it's, again, dopamine. So there's a way the brain works. But people will use that information, and instead of embodying the I can do more, which is why getting a good therapist to help you to get nervous system sovereignty, and then using the practices to grow yourself. This reminds me, there's a quote, another piece of information I want to read to you all. So we'll continue the conversation in another moment in time, but when you meet people who know how to be in the present, in the now, in their prefrontal, we will learn new things from all different subject matters. We can bring it all in and have fun with it, and then we'll spot when someone's making an assumption based on yesterday's news, making it sound like it's the only truth that will be into tomorrow, and it's like, no, that's not the case. Which is why I do make fun of the flat earthers, but I wouldn't make fun of them in a way of let me, like, actually, they're not stupid, they're brilliant. And I appreciate the humility that comes from the experts who know we need in science those who can talk to all versus treat them like buffoons, because curiosity is something that you want to have. The ones who don't seem to understand the need for us to continuously be curious are the same ones who don't have their adolescent essence alive as grown up. So the flat earthers represent no threat to an intelligent person. They simply represent a group of people who decided to go on a journey and are doing their research and whatever. But the point is not that. Is that if we eliminate the capacity to be curious, which we can't, actually, this is where I would be, okay, I'm going to go now, because otherwise I'm going to keep you on for another hour and I don't want to right now. But the point is that there isn't one or two. And those who don't like curiosity and creativity and differences are the ones who want it to be fixed, and there's not a fixed and there's a blend that happens. Humility is where the experts and the true leadership lies, because they bring people together. So when you have a true leader, all become leaders. When you have the fake ones, they don't do all. And that's because they don't know how to. And that's because they're also threatened, which means they're insecure, which means they're blind, disconnected, and they're dehumanizing, and they have a good team and a bad team. And you'll notice. And while they're being divisive, the ones who are not are the brilliant ones. Are like, okay, there's all the golden nuggets. There's some more. Oh, look, here we got. Here you go. They're proactively providing a solution. And that's not me right now. It's somebody who's brilliant and more out there. So the capacity for the experts to our brilliance, they take and work with all their colleagues, and they're the ones who fill in the gap because they're actively caring about what they do. And that gap gets filled and they leave the test of time. That's love leadership. Leave something that the future generations will always grow from. Fear-based doesn't leave shit except for, well, here, children, look at what we can learn about. So let us talk about the ego. Let us talk about dysregulation. Let us talk about the body brain. It tries to protect you, but so I'm sure that with the polyvagal lens and with the IPNB framework and with the PDP framework and all the things that I'm still learning about and neuroscience, the future will have a bountiful of. So children, here's what happened. As like I told you, the kings and queens, 14 years of age. I'm not surprised that we have certain things going the way they are. So anyone, I don't need a conspiracy theory. I'm grounded in reality. I'm like, wow, I still know what teenagers do right now. And I know how the embodied brain works when it's not integrated. Okay, so the study that I'm going to just give you the gist of, this Dunbar's number, proposed by British anthropologist in the 1990s, basically that we can only maintain around 150 stable relationships. And it suggests a cognitive limit based on brain size, where 150 is the average number of people that one can maintain meaningful social relationships with. So it tells the key details, blah, blah, blah. The debate. A 2021 study by Stockholm University researchers, Johan Linda et al., challenged this, arguing that modern data suggests people can maintain more than 150 relationships and that the cognitive limit is not that precise. Despite challenges, Dunbar's remains a widely cited theory in anthropology and social psychology regarding social networking capacity. Okay, so I'm an academic at heart. I still love learning. And this is why when I mention humility and I mention academia, we need more of those who are in the now. The elasticity of the neuroplasticity brain of the bright sides. We need more experts like that, because whenever I think of this, right now we have a debate because there's new data. And if scientists are smart, then they know new data gets built. The ones who want to say, oh, so I'm going to unlearn everything or nothing stands, they don't like the capacity for us to stay, okay, look, there's open-ended, because we will find new things as we move into the future. This is not good or bad. Nobody freaks out at new information and at the possibility for new information. But if we have people who are anciently only using yesterday's news without bringing in the new data, without integrating it all, then we have people who treat information as if it stagnates and stays fixed, which it doesn't, which is why we need more of the scientists to be humble and to be able to understand how to bring the harmony between that which is what I was saying before, the adolescent essence, so curiosity, not treat people who have different ideas as if they're buffoons, and so stop replicating the ancients who, Hippocrates pointed out, hey, once you find out what epilepsy is, you'll stop calling it the wrath of the gods. Took eons for that to happen, probably. Now we have neuroscientists proving there's no demons, and we still have those who want to use the words lack of imagination for evil versus no. You lack education, and you lack knowing Michael Stone's forensic criminology skill. But guess what? I also don't need to use the word. I don't have to dehumanize people that I know are doing things that are dysregulated. I just need to find their unembodied leaders. They're modeling them. They're giving each other perfect examples of how to behave. And once again, so you don't want to model that. We model what is maturity. We know that dysregulation is the unhealth, so is distress. And by the way, the part about exaggerating it is our embodied brain getting agitated because we will spot that which is dangerous. And so the spiritual bypassers like to use stories, and they continue with there's potentially a good or bad, who's going to win, who's going to win. That's like actively the low dopamine hit or whatever, however I can describe it. of the fantasy stage, versus the embodying of let me breathe, pause myself. I got all excited, bring forth my prefrontal, get into that equanimous calm centeredness, bring forth more ventral energy, let me get happy all of a sudden. Okay, now I'm grounded again, and I do know that our world is facing a lot of things, but I don't have to exaggerate it like a 3-year-old who's got a 16-year-old who's got, okay, so I use the child parts because they come up with those same numbers. Others might use the defense mechanisms. But the point is that when uncertainty comes your way, you don't destabilize, you grow steady. So self-leadership, that's what you need, not the transformation. Transformation is still amazing to use as a word, awakening, expansion, but realistically speaking, you continue to become more of yourself. And with that, thank you so much. Join us here at IHP on Spotify, YouTube, and elsewhere. Check out PayHip for journal prompts and mindset practices, and Substack for more to come. And let anybody know who has a steady self-image about these places. Have a good one.